If you gonna tell a story, come with some attitude, man.
Miles Davis. My name's Dave Braden, Rolling Stone magazine.
I'm here to do your comeback story.
Okay, move back a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't send people to my house.
You have new material.
My material. My session tape.
You're under contract here. We actually own that tape.
Miles! You own? How much money you got on you? Okay, you about 19,000 light, but that's a start. I moved to New York, met some cats, made some music.
Studied piano too, huh?
Nah, just woke up black, knew how to play.
You're black?
The music don't move on in this dead music. It's all about improvisation. Francis, I'm gonna send a plane to pick you up. I need you. I love you. Somebody stole my tape.
What?
You call him right now, tell him you coming over.
Can't take y'all over there, man. He'll kill me.
You don't do what I say, I'm gonna kill you. It takes a long time to be able to play like yourself.
I gave up everything for you, Miles. I deserve better than this.
Hey, hold it, buddy, hold it. Do you have a ticket?
You're looking at it. You trying to piss me off, man?
You don't know what the word lose means, do you, Miles?
I'm giving my music back. Go.
This is madness. I am not dying over this jazz tape.
Don't call it jazz, man. That's some made-up word. It's social music.
You look amazing.
Oh, thank you.
This is a wonderful outfit. You look beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. This is fun.
It must be so nice to talk about a great movie. You know, to be in something
Yeah.
that's really great and to be able to promote it. Because it's not your standard biopic. It's such a fascinating riff that he did on the biopic genre. What did you think when you first saw the script? Because I would imagine anyone getting a Miles Davis script, you're expecting the sort of birth to death story that we get from Ray and from a number of other sort of musician biopic movies.
You know, it's funny because on the page, just seeing the script, I don't think I could see what we now see on screen. You know, on the script, it was very different, I think, visually in my mind, you know, because we're dealing with two different time periods. So I really didn't see that part come together until I saw the movie for the first time, you know, because our two periods don't really interact. You know, I'm in the 50s and 60s, and then everything with Ewan and with Keith Stanfield is in the 70s. And so when I saw it, it was as surprising for me. But as it was on the script, you know, and knowing what the story was going to be about Miles and him coming out of a silent period and his relationship with Frances, it was all so exciting for me because I didn't know as much about Miles Davis as I now know, and I knew nothing about his relationship with Frances, so it was all new for me, and I was really curious about the nature of their relationship, you know, and just the volatility of it, and how she was able to get herself out of it.
Yeah, able to get herself out of it. What did you think going into playing the role of a woman? It's kind of not the entire story, but for a part of the story is in the midst of a kind of domestic situation, a domestically violent situation.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No, that's exactly it. I mean, her strength is something for me that is admirable. You know, I think that it took her courage to love as fully as she did, to be willing to give up her career, and all of that was courageous for me, but I think it took even more courage for her to realize, as much as I love him, as much as I've sacrificed, I can't take this, I can't stand for this, and she decided to leave, you know. So I was just very encouraged by that. Just as a woman, that takes a lot, and it's scary to be able to take that step.
Now, you said you didn't know that much about Miles Davis going into this. What kind of research did you do going into shooting? Did you feel like you had to do research, or was kind of everything there on the page for you to really dive into on its own?
You know, I did research because I wanted to just know everything that I could for myself. I wanted to read all of the biographies and everything about Miles Davis so that I could be informed. But Don Cheadle himself, I mean, he he's been with this project for so long that he just had a wealth of information that he shared with me. And then he put me in touch with Frances. And so she and I had about 3 or 4 wonderful champagne-filled lunches, where she really shared a lot of her stories and her experiences with me, which was really a gift. You don't get that often. She was very forthcoming. She's as excited about this movie being made as anyone else, so she was really open.
Was it hard to sort of hear a lot of her experiences? Because the movie can't capture all of her experiences. The movie has to capture the spirit of Miles Davis, and you also have to be with him to sort of go along with the movie. And to really capture all of her experiences with Miles Davis, you might not be with him by the end of the movie.
That's exactly it. There's no way to capture it all. Some of the things that we did capture were, some of the biggest moments or what have you, but there were so many that we just could not put them all in there. That's a separate movie itself, just their relationship.
Did you ever have a moment, though, when, after talking to her, you're on set and you're telling this Miles Davis story, and as I said, this Miles Davis story, and you're thinking to yourself, well, what if we could do a little more for Frances here, because her story has so much sort of triumph in it on its own?
And that was one of the things for me in doing the research for Frances. There's not a lot out there about her online, anywhere, really. There's literally maybe just a couple web pages. So if it had not been for Don putting us together, I really wouldn't have known much about her. So that was one of the things for me that I really was excited that would come from this movie, that you would know more about who this woman was, because she meant a lot to Miles Davis. She was his muse. He needed her creatively, and that was something they bonded with, for each other. And so it was important for me that would be put out there.
Now, Don Cheadle is doing so much in every scene of this movie. He's directing, co-writer, producing, and then as a performance, he's doing a lot as an actor.
Yeah.
He's embodying something that's very different from who he actually is. What was that like to work with? How was he going from monitor to performance? Is he maintaining character the whole time, which a lot of people would call method? I don't necessarily think that that's method. That's just kind of how you get to maintain the day, how you can move faster. If you break character, it might take you time to get back into it.
That's exactly it. I was fascinated by Don's ability to, when I say stay in character, every moment he wasn't going around, in the voice of Miles Davis or what have you, but he was very much so still just in character. When he had to direct, you still felt that he was Miles. When he had to go and give a note, to his DP or something, he was very much still very present. And I think that's something, we all love Don Cheadle. He's just the consummate actor. He's very professional. And the way he works is just, it was wonderful to watch. It really was wonderful to watch, because he has this ability to just be. And I think because this story of Miles Davis is so close to him, he really was able to fully embody it without having to take off one hat to put on another, to take off that to put on another. He stayed in it, but not in a methody actor kind of way. He was just very present. And so
Did he ever give you a note as Miles Davis? Like, did he come over and give you a note? Hey, come on, let's do that like that.
He did. On my first day on set, my first day was my last scene in the movie where she's running away.
Wow,
and
really?
Yeah, that was my first day. And really, Don and I had met, and we'd had a dinner to discuss the film and the characters before, but that was really my first time meeting him, was on set for the most part. And so I'm sitting on this stoop, and he comes up to me, and he's in the Miles' voice, and he's like, "You better get up, or you're gonna run out of here." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what is happening? Hello, hi Don, how are you?" You know what I mean? We just got right into it, and so it worked for the scene, but it was just frantic because he was just finishing shooting another scene with Ewan, and he's doing my scene, and there was just so much just panic going on, but it worked for what we were shooting. But hearing him, in my ear as Miles Davis was a lot to be my first day.
It's not just you running out, right? Was it the whole scene with the knife and moving around the house, or was that first day just running out?
The first day was just the running.
Oh, wow.
The first day was just the running portion of that scene. So I'm literally just got to set, and I'm sitting there getting ready to just do the part where she's running away. So, having to get myself to, the emotional state that she would be in when she's having to leave, and not just running down the street, so it took a lot to get there. And it was very helpful to have him, in character as Miles for me on that first day, but it was also very unnerving, which was perfect for the scene.
Because that's a scene that doesn't require an incredible amount of direction and notes, so you get to get used to him sort of being who he's going to be for the next couple weeks without having to sort of do some sort of really emotional scene that could force you to think everything that's going on.
Exactly. It was very helpful to have him there in that way, and also for me, though I didn't, we haven't shot the beginning portion of that scene, it was very helpful that it kind of eased me into it, but at the same time, it was a big scene to start with, but I prefer that than to start with, a love scene on day one or something. Who wants that? So
it happens. I've heard the story that
it has happened before.
Is that an awkward thing when that happens? Or you're just like, all right, well, I signed up, I signed the contract, let's go.
It's very awkward, because love scenes, period, are awkward. So when it's your first day at work, it's even more awkward.
Brings everybody a little closer together for the second day, maybe.
Just a little.
Maybe, I don't know. How did you get this role? I mean, what was the process like getting a role like this with Don? Because as you said, this is a project that he's been close to for a very long time. If I remember correctly, it's not just something that he was maybe always going to direct. It was a project that was sort of in development here and there. It fell through, and then he decided to step on as director. And
yeah, it kind of happened someone else. Vince, who is Miles Davis's nephew, he kind of mentioned it when Miles was being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Someone asked him about who would play Miles Davis, and he just volunteered, it's going to be Don Cheadle. Don's going to do it. This is before Don even knew that he was going to do it. So that's kind of how it happened, and they brainstormed some ideas about what the story would look like, and Don and the family realized that in order to tell the kind of story that Don thought would be best, he would have to direct it. So that's how it really all came about. And for me, it was through the audition process. I auditioned on tape for Don, and that's how we ended up. That's why we didn't meet early on, was because it was on tape. So we really didn't meet until we got to Cincinnati, which is where we filmed the movie.
And you only auditioned once?
Yeah.
You must have been incredible in that audition. I mean, something like this that you're so close to, I feel like as a director, you'd have a hard time making a decision because it's been in your head for so long. You'd be so precious about it.
Yeah, that's very true. I'd like to think that I did a good enough job.
You're fantastic in the film.
Thank you.
And now this isn't the only thing that you're here to talk about today. You have so many other things that are going on with you right now. You're going to be in Roots, the new version of Roots that's coming out. That is incredible. What was it like shooting that?
Oh. That was, that was really life-changing in a lot of ways. It was an experience that really stayed with me, that is still with me. We shot that film in Louisiana, and to be on actual slave plantations and, seeing actual slave quarters and things like that, it was just very real. I'd never come that close to slavery in that sense. And then just the subject matter, what we're dealing with. It was really a lot for me and difficult in a lot of ways, in which I knew it would be, but it definitely had an effect on me that surely will be lasting. But it's a wonderful project. I'm so proud to be a part of it. It's something that I really believe will add to the conversation, and hopefully make things move forward.
It's so important that we continue to tell the story of slavery, because it should never be something that we only reference as the past.
Yeah.
It should never be something that we are over that. The ramifications of institutional oppressiveness that had happened at that time, and then that lasted throughout the early 19th century, and there's still elements of it felt today, and I think people don't want to recognize that there are still elements of it that are felt currently.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. That's why I hope that this will help to further the conversation, because there are still lingering effects that we have. The fact that there is a necessity to have a Black Lives Matter movement, that speaks to a very large.
And there's a large amount of people that want to say all lives matter and don't want to justify the fact that there is this movement, Black Lives Matter. Like the fact that is still there and people don't want to hear that phrase and it upsets them is part of the problem as well, and is part of that lingering history.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Yeah. So I hope that Roots, along with other things that are coming out, there's the underground, things like this, I hope that they further the conversation, that people will be more willing to not just swipe everything under the rug, and really speak about the things that happen. Because I think that only from speaking about it can real healing come. People have a lot of different feelings and guilt and things like that. I think this is necessary, which is why I'm really excited about Roots and being a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that we don't only tell the sort of historical pieces, the historical aspects of Black culture currently. A lot of times we focus on the history and we don't focus on the stories that are right now and what's going on, because it's easier for us to contextualize them as that was then.
So true.
That was
so
then.
True.
That's not necessarily now. And it's like, as we said, there are lingering reverberations from this. I have to ask, this is totally changing the subject, but in terms of someone who has told a historical story, you worked with Ava DuVernay, correct?
I did.
On one of her first movies? Maybe it was her second movie?
Her second one, Middle of Nowhere.
And it was with David Oyelowo as well. Did I do that? Did I say it right? I think.
David Oyelowo.
I think I did. I think I said it right.
Yeah.
I've interviewed him, and I've always been like, Oyelowo.
I know.
I feel really bad. What was it like working with her? At the time that she made that movie, she was like a press agent for studios and stuff like that, right?
Well, actually, no. By the time she'd made Middle, and even with her first film, I Will Follow, she wasn't a publicist anymore by that point. But that was her former life. And for me, I really got an up-close and personal view to how she moved to that world of publicity. When we went on our tour for the movie, the press tour, we called it our...
Don't say that, say this.
Yeah, exactly. We called it our Thelma and Louise tour. It was really just she and I, we're going around, and she really just helped to prepare me for that, telling me what to say and things like that, and, suggestions and everything. It was really a great training ground for me in that sense.
What did you think of working with her when you worked with her? Could you see sort of the visionary that she's become? Could you see it developing?
Oh yeah, Ava. She's a woman who has definite ideas and vision and things that she wants to do. She has a real point of view, and I think that anyone who has a real point of view, more than likely you'll see them succeed. And so for me, it wasn't a shock, everything that's been happening with her, because she was definitely that then.
And you have another film coming out with another female director, Karen Kusama, who did Girl Fight. She's a fantastic filmmaker. I look forward to this movie. It's called The Invitation, right? What is this movie? Tell me about it.
That film is like a psychological thriller, is what I would say. It's my first thriller film, which for me was nerve-wracking because I am scared of all thrillers, horrors, everything. I'm like, I could never actually make one. I always said I could never make a thriller.
You now watch them?
I love to watch them, which is why I feel like I can't actually do one, because I'm always jumping and screaming. I would never be, believable. So it was a little
bit different on a film set.
No, but it's not. It's not. I was still equally as afraid at every moment, when you have to be afraid. So it was a lot of fun to do it. And when I actually saw it, it's one of those films that kind of gets underneath your skin. It's in a nutshell, it's about a dinner party, it's about a group of friends, and what can happen when people deal with grief differently. And it all takes place over the course of one night, and it really is kind of creepy.
I love one-night movies.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to shoot it?
How long did we shoot that? I think it was about 21 days or something like that. Yeah.
That's pretty good. And there's probably 21 nights, right? If it takes place over the course of one night, so you're shooting
we shot it over nights.
5 to 5, basically?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So that added to the hysteria of it, because we're all delirious. And we all, we're in this house, this tiny house, It was very nerve-wracking, but in a good way.
So back to Miles Ahead. When you got this role, you must have been so pumped.
I was beyond excited. Mm-hmm. For me to be able to work with Don Cheadle, he's one of those actors that, if you have a list, he's more than likely on it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Going back to Boogie Nights and even before that, I mean, he's always just been, was it Mouse, I think, in the movie Colors? The Dennis
Colors.
Hopper movie?
Colors.
Colors.
Colors. That was my movie.
We're going to get sued by Ice-T.
Yeah, I've always loved Don Cheadle, so I was excited about that period. And then with him directing, that was a whole nother layer to be directed by Don Cheadle. And then again, in a movie about Miles Davis, so all of it was just really exciting for me.
Did you ever have any conversations with him on set where he was Don Cheadle, or was it essentially like you can't really bother him because he's directing, he's doing this big performance. So it's kind of like when it's your turn to go, you just go. And if you have a question, maybe you ask it.
I mean, he was always very accessible, but I think that all of us, you know, pretty much felt the same way, which was, yeah, he's Don, you know, but you want to, because he is wearing so many hats, you want to do your best to help him to stay in character as well, you know, so I don't want to come up to him and say, Don, you know, what's going on today, and have these casual conversations, you know, so there really wasn't too much of that, although he was very relaxed, you know, he was definitely not just, you know, serious every day on set. It wasn't that, but you really did.
I'm laughing at the idea of him like sitting in the director's chair trying to get things going, still in the Miles Davis voice, and you're standing next to him just being like, oh, I had a great night last night.
Right.
Went out, had a drink,
Right.
and he's
You
just
know,
like, yeah,
you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So it was very, everyone understood that you want to do your best to help him, you know, kind of stay in that place.
Absolutely. I think we have some time for questions from the audience. Does anyone have any questions out here in the audience?
Hi.
Hi.
So coming off of Middle of Nowhere, it's like, what was the acting process like when you worked on Miles Davis, and what did you learn from that set?
Well, what was great for me was that both of these films were very fast-paced. You know, we both shot both of them, you know, in under 30 days, what have you. So you have to go. You know, there's not a lot of takes. You more than likely you better get it on the first one because you might not get another chance. So for me, I already had that experience. Really, I've had that experience a lot before in terms of just make sure that you're good the first time out. You know, it's for you to be good. So that was helpful for me coming into the set because I knew that the time was limited. And I think one of the other things that helped coming from Middle of Nowhere was really working with a director like Ava, you know, who has a very clear vision. And Don has that same thing. So you really want to, when you have a director like that, you want to be a part of helping them get to where they're trying to take the film. You don't feel like you're fighting against the grain or you're working with someone who isn't collaborative and doesn't understand. So working with directors who have a vision but are willing to include everyone else is really helpful.
Absolutely. Next question.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering if you prefer playing characters that are based on real people and true stories, or if you enjoy being a fictional character where you kind of have to invent everything yourself more.
You know, I really think I like both. You know, playing Frances Taylor was my first time playing a real-life character. It's definitely a bit more nerve-wracking playing someone who is a real-life character, especially when they're sitting right behind you when the movie's premiering and you're like, oh, and you don't know that until you hear them exclaim something from the audience. You know, you're watching the film and all of a sudden she says, "That's her!" And I'm like, oh no, why is she behind me? You know, so I'm worried now what she's gonna be thinking or what have you, which she really was very pleased, which is really just a gift as an actor, you know, to have the person you're portraying be pleased with your performance. But I think in general, I don't have a preference. I just like playing complex, interesting women. That for me is exciting. So whether fictional or not, that's what I like.
Does it really, does it matter when you get to the set, though? I mean, you may have done a lot of research about Frances, or if you're playing another real person beforehand, but really once you get to the set, you're going off the page a lot of the time, and once something gets committed to page, everything to a certain degree is fiction at that point. Everything
true.
at that point becomes pretend and make-believe, and
That's
you have
true.
to do what's there on the page. You're not sort of, you know, reciting the phone book of someone's life while
That's
you're
very
there.
true. Very true, and a very good point.
Next question.
Hi, thank you for
Hi.
being here. So
Thank you.
actually, to that last point, I know you mentioned Don had many roles in making this film, in addition to just acting, you know. So Jazz is very collaborative. Were you able to collaborate with him and give your takes on the words on the page, or did he have such a clear vision because it was such a close project to him that he wanted you to do it a very specific way?
It was both things. I was able to give him ideas and things that I thought of, and he would incorporate those, and we would discuss those. And I think that's what is great about collaboration, because there's a way to collaborate without someone losing their vision. And so that's exactly what it was. We still got to the point, got to where he saw it going, but he was still able to incorporate my ideas. And I think that's the best place to be in collaboration.
I think we have time for one more question right here.
Hi, thank you for coming.
Hi.
I was curious to know, what was the most surprising thing you learned about Miles Davis?
You know, there were a lot of things. I was really surprised to learn just about the physical, the violent side. I didn't know anything about that. That was all new to me, so that was surprising. But also the depths of his genius and his creativity, you know, the contributions that he made to music. I did not know the extent of what he did. He was very unorthodox and outside of the box in terms of how he created music, which is really exactly how Don operated this set. You know, he was very, I think seeing the movie, when you guys get a chance to see it, it's, again, not your typical biopic. And that's how Miles Davis tended to work. And for me, that was new, learning that, you know, his contribution to music on a very, very large scale was really something new to me. And I really valued knowing that at this point, because I didn't know it before. So for me, I hope that that's another thing that people get from this film when they see it.
Did you have a harder time after you had done the research and sort of read and talked to Francis and heard about the really violent side of Miles, which the film, as we said before, you know, it's got to tell a certain kind of story. You got to stick with Miles a little bit, so it kind of scratches the surface in terms of his violence towards Francis and other women. Did it give you a harder time or make it more difficult for you to sort of respect and admire his creative genius as well, or do you find that you can kind of separate the two?
You know, I think, and that's a question that I think a lot of people have asked when it comes to someone who is so creative, you know, such a genius. We have a lot of those, you know, in our culture, people who do great things, but then in their personal lives, they do things that make you question. And so for me, I think I'm able to see what he was able to contribute, you know, to society, to his music, what have you, separate from what he did. And neither one negates the other. This is true, and this is true as well. And I think that is true, period, for anyone. You know, we all have these different sides of our personalities. No one knows what we do when we're by ourselves or what have you, but that does not mean that the work that you do or what have you is negated. And so I think that for me, that's the best way to kind of look at it, because you really can't throw one out with the other, because they both are true and
Absolutely. Present. I gotta say, congratulations on the movie. It's a really fantastic performance.
Thank you.
When can these people see it?
It will be out April 1st.
April 1st, guys. Go see it. Miles Ahead. It's really fantastic. Congratulations. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.